fire. Hey!
Well, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome. Welcome to a fresh, brand new edition of the program ASHFORD GARLEY. It's on British Radio Africa. Today is Monday, the 27th of October, I beg your pardon, November 2023. We're coming your way from a city near you. I know some heard the name, some heard people talk about them, but you got an opportunity tonight to match name, face, and voice. And as always, Father God, want to give you praise, want to give you honor, want to magnify your name. Glory be to your holy name, Lord Jesus. You woke us up this morning. You've given us strength. You didn't have to do it, but you did just that. With that, we want to say thank you. In the name of Jesus, we have given thanks. The mastermind, the doctor of love, the medicine of the microphone, Basijan Plu, Sekonwe a Epelia. You only know Muzo, no one get mad double to dry. Adi Wapo. Yours truly, Ashford the Giant Garlet. Welcome to the show. Well, lady and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Let me begin with my dynamic and darling co-host, Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts. Mrs. Roberts, welcome to the show.
Good evening, Mr. Garley. Good evening to my fellow panelists. How are you?
We're better than good.
Wonderful.
I hope
Thanks
you're
for
having
asking.
a beautiful Monday as we begin our week with another fantastic Rich Radio Africa edition. We ask that you please make yourselves comfortable as we bring you issues that matter. Please be respectful of one another. Please be respectful of our panelists. Please be respectful of our host. What you write is just as important as what you say. We ask you to make yourself comfortable as we discuss issues that matter to you. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Garley.
Okay. I also like to say welcome to Reverend George. Reverend George, welcome to the show.
Thank you. And likewise, thank you to all the panelists, my fellow panelists, and our listening audience. It's a pleasure to always be here and articulate issues that matter to Liberia. We all want to have a fresh start to see where we move the country with our contributions individually. So I'm glad to be here. I look forward to a healthy debate.
The Reverend Artemus Gay, welcome to the show, my brother.
Thank you. I love. I'm Reverend now.
I'm sorry, Dr. Artemus Gay. We got too many reverends on the show, you know. So.
Yeah.
Bless the man. Yes, thank you very much. It's a cold Monday in Chicago. I should have been in Liberia today, but always expect the unexpected. Got to take care of Pop, and we'll still make the trip. We should be there by God's grace Friday. So we are here in Chicago.
Okay.
The Reverend Idatus added, first off, I want to, on behalf of British Radio Management, express our condolences to you and the church for the Lords. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashford. Greetings to all of you wonderful panelists, Liberians in diaspora, Liberians watching in Liberia. Thanks for having us. We're glad to be here once more to talk about our beloved country, Liberia. Thank you.
Okay, and at this time, if you just joining the show, please share the video. Your friends are not our friends. Don't be selfish. Don't enjoy the show by yourself. Grab something to drink. I'm drinking coffee. And get the popcorn rolling as we discuss Mama Liberia tonight. I'd like to say hi to Ojuku Tage. Ojugo, how are you? It's been a long time. I also like to say hi to Madam May Carter uh, from East Orange, the New Jersey area. I mean, I went to your place some time ago, but only met your son, and you have been a very a powerful supporter and follower of British Radio of Africa. And Madaka, I think you said the last time you were having your retirement program. I don't know if you already did, but just know that we're years, and I'm right next door to you tonight in New Jersey. So let us know. Mr. Duke Cloud Williams is in the building. Miatad Mahmoud is also here. Sampi Pro from Toronto, Canada is also in the house tonight. And listen, folks, enjoy the show together with the rest of your friends, relatives, and loved ones. Share the video. Deconti Demilia J. Idatus, why don't you bring us to speed? Give us the menu tonight as it relates to the program.
Well, certainly the transition of the transition team is still functioning, to ensure that everything is, transitioned properly. The president left the country today. It is believed he's come to he's going to Dubai, the UAE, for the climate conference. We're hoping that we'll hear something good about Liberia's role in that. And as it stands now, as the American reported on his page, that members of the United Party Situation Room received 20 scholarships by an unknown donor to facilitate studies abroad. So we're quite frankly at a position where expectations can wait for inauguration and a transition to, a government of the people, for the people, and by the people, in the persons of our incoming president, Joseph Maboyka, and Jeremiah Cohn, vice president. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Gay, let us talk about the president's travel today to the UAE as it relates to the COP28. Tell us about the essence of the trip and what does Liberia stand to gain from this trip?
First, this is an important period of transition. COP20, Dubai, is basically a public-private initiative based also on what has been brought over by the international community. Liberia, like any other country that does not have a working team of experts, you basically just take in a group of people to travel, enjoy the amenities of a trip, and get back and offer your people little or nothing. Because all that have been said is pretty much private companies, private entities using their governmental or connection to make a case that they can take your country and exploit it as they think fit. That's all you're going to get out of this meeting today. It is a fanfare, to say the least.
Reverend George, let us talk about the timing of his trip to Dubai. This president flew private jet for 6 years. We are at the transition period where we have president-elect. No one knows what is left in the coffers. Civil servants have still not gotten paid for almost 3 months, but he's yet on another private jet. He could have. I know there were times where Madam Salih sent some people to proxy for her, as it relates to the COP, whether it was COP 2013, the 14, or the 16. Does he have to go? Because every time he travels, it costs the taxpayer money. And private jet is in the tune of anywhere from $2,000 to $15,000 an hour. Reverend George.
Well, thank you so much. I just want to pick it back on what Brother Gay said. The antics is very bad, considering the fact that Liberia had just received a red card from the World Bank, Economic World Card, to see the president, making such a trade as you have described. It's concerning. The antics are bad, but whether they send people, they go themselves, they still use taxpayer money. And it begs the question that Brother K asked, what good is coming out of it? Private public partnership initiative coming together to talk about what? Climate? I mean, for God's sake, why not the world talk about hunger that is killing people all over the world? We want to save the planet when people are dying of hunger, you know. So for me, the basic question is, what benefit does it bring to Liberia? I know about the money spending is very bad, you know, whether it's the sitting president still spending from the coffers or the incoming folks. It's very bad. The antics is bad. The realities on the ground do not support such a lavish trip. But at the end of the day, you want to ask the question, what would it bring back to the country? What do we stand to benefit?
Thank you.
Maybe, like our brother said, little or nothing. So
Thank
again, this president continue to show his continued ardent disregard for taxpayer money for Liberia. That's from day one when he took office. In 6 months, we saw how he broke down everything and rebuilt it. So it's been business as usual. And I mean, we can't wait to see the transition. For me, the transition could happen right now. Get them out there and let the people come to be able to do put a break on this excess spending that is going on in Liberia. So it is bad.
Thank you. Thank you. Mrs. Letty Brooks Roberts, the president said some of the things that he's going to miss is the food and pageantry, the large gathering, you know, when people see him and they give him that attention. He's going to miss some of those things. So I'm not surprised that he's on a private jet at the cost of the Liberian people to just go and have fun.
You took the words out of my mouth, Mr. Garley. Exactly. For the 6 years we've had this gentleman as the president, we have seen what he did. And somebody just took everything out of his hand and he's like, whew, let me go for my last raya. Enjoyment. So, you know, it just shows the kind of person that he is, you know, during this strategic time where you're crisscrossing with other people looking. It's like somebody coming in your house to inspect and you leave it. You know, it says a lot about this guy. We already knew George Weah didn't want to be the president all these years. And he has displayed that just today. We you know, I would be somewhere, you know, making sure all my T's are crossed, my I's are dotted, you know, as any good leader would. And even if you're not doing it personally, but you're making sure that people responsible turn over great notes and things are intact, because it is your reputation that's on the line, no matter who does it. So, and today you jump on a plane, private, and as stated earlier, these monies are still coming from the country's coffers. Whether it's 1 more month to your term, I'm sure they're going to make sure every penny that they take, they're going to use it, you know, put it. They're not going to bring a balance and say, oh, we only use, you know, 150,000. You can have the other 50. No. So this guy's a careless person, and it shows in all of his decisions, actions, conversations, and you name it. I'm not surprised.
Thank you, Mrs. Roberts. Idatu's had it.
Well, unfortunately, I may disagree a bit with my fellow panelists on very simple reasons. Climate change is a global problem, and Liberia being a part of the conversation, even though our president is a lame duck president, quite frankly, but those international obligations do not go away, even though he lost these elections. So these were trips, I believe, that was already planned, and his attendance put us at the forefront to participate in the global effort to reduce global warming, and also to address issues pertaining to lives on this climate, specifically to the issue of conservancy. So having said that, maybe the entourage may have been too large, I don't know, but the fact remains that, you know, Liberia being a part of this already scheduled obligation, I don't find any problem with the president traveling right now at this point in time. So don't forget, global warming is a conglomeration of over 200 nations coming together to discuss some four pillars having to do with the livelihood of people on the climate, what we do with nature here, and how those vulnerable communities can also be managed in the process of potential disasters. This event also gives vulnerable nations an opportunity to secure funding to help manage nature or the climate within those different countries that are quite frankly threatened by heat waves. And third world countries, or Liberia, is no exception to that. So whether or not the technical expertise were taken to help address these issues can be something questionable, but I certainly look forward to finding out whether or not our president, George Weah, will return and hopefully share with us some of the things learned, lessons learned, and how this new government can be able to apply that as they facilitate the transition. Thank you.
Reverend George, the transition team heading towards inauguration 6 years ago, the tune of uh, 900,000 to $1 million was spent on that transition team, despite the fact that the country was in the very not so good situation. Now that this president is leaving, the incoming president, Mr. Boyka, who everybody perceives to be on the conservative side, what are we looking at? Because we saw 6 years it just went by. We saw Madame Joy Howard Taylor asking for $200,000 just to change her office, get a brand new office and her living place. What are we looking to hearing or saying as it relates to the transition and inauguration for President-elect Joseph Yuma Boyka?
Well, thank you for that question. I think that's why my inclination, I continue to say that for the road we are on, we should be open and tolerant to either criticism or constructive contribution in terms of suggestions. Now, you talk about 900,000 in a tune of 900,000 plus. The Liberian people yet to know how much this auto transition will cost. Remember on day one, I was talking about the need to come clean to tell us the whole project scope, if you will. How much is this going to cost? Now, I was recommending, and I'm still recommending on this radio, that if I were in the corner of the incoming president, Joseph Nyamabwaka, I would suggest something different. I mean, who said we can't try anything different? Liberia is out of financial crisis now. Can we scale down? And this has been my advocacy. Can they scale down this time around and set a new record instead of the usual presidential pomp and pageantry, eat sumptuously and drink while your fellow countrymen are suffering? They can do something different. They can cut down the budget tremendously. They can decide to have a good service at Effort Baptist Church and move to the executive mansion and exchange your stuff. Give her everything. Go. Let's start fresh. Does it have to cost that much? I don't think so. So this is what we are saying. Responsibility must start somewhere. The same way we are calling for the outgoing government to be audited, we are calling on the incoming government to see if they can do something different, if they can break away from the traditional NOV of having all these state donors and everything when your countrymen are suffering. So that's why. So right now, we don't even know the budget that will be spent. Are you telling me that after they spend the budget, then later on we get to know that they spend 600,000, 900,000, 1.5 million? Why not now so we can discuss it and make an input? That would be my position right now.
Dr. Gay, we had the first peaceful transfer of power since 74 years, 6 years ago. And we heard something called Executive Order 91. Please bring us up to speed in a clear understanding of Executive Order 91 and how we can tie it into the transition between George Weah and President Boyka.
Well, this is a good historical, and here is a roadmap. Again, because of my way of saying things here, I always said, Ellen, the Ellen-led Unity Party government was basically her third term under George Weah. I've said that as a critic of understanding nation building. That's why 15 top officials of Ellen government, when Unity Party split, went to CDC. I've always labeled that from day one. Yeah. So now, but Ellen did something so good for George Weah. Basically, Ellen gave George Weah everything to succeed. And I'm glad that Reverend Idadus made it clear. You see, Amara, good thing he confessed. Amara was also part of that transitional process, the economic side of George Weah's success, or the transition. Because there's no denial for me, I say as it is, there are records, we knew the record was there. Money was transferred through Ellen to help George Weah succeed. This, we will write the historical side, we will put it there. So now, Executive Order 91 was well structured. Basically, what Ellen was doing for George Weah, her son, and I will say it this way, was to say young men succeed. So that at least we move beyond the old guys. But what in Executive Order that I like, Ellen, there were 5 major rules or governing structure that Ellen laid out through Jordan Solente, who led the transitional team. And they were the 6 areas. Well, tell the people about governance, state of the economy, the human development that we did, and then plan your inauguration, and then make sure you implement a plan on security and law. It was laid out by the JPTT 91, the executive order. Well built so that George Weah couldn't fail. Now, McGill was part of that committee coming from the CDC side. Whether or not they were able to do the state of the economy to this date, we do not know. So this is a roadmap today because that same executive order is what is there. So when we were discussing, and come back to what Reverend George said.
1 minute, Leti Idatus, I just shared that executive order with you guys via your messenger. Go ahead.
So it comes back to what Reverend George once said. There's a scope of what to expect because on day one, when that order ends, you have to start running. There's another portion that move on, and that is governance. So when that framework was laid out, to this day, we have no idea as to what happened. So all this thing we are talking about auditing and stuff, basically, the executive order is supposed to help you have a running to get your feet grounded. And the good thing is, it is well listed. That's an audit by itself because it is there. So the very question that this new administration should be asking, what happened to Executive Order 91? Where are we? CDC, did you get any report to give us so we can be able to move on? So these were things that were already laid out. So this is very, very crucial as we move to this next transition team so that they cannot be guessing because it's very easy to have people with all of these degrees and stuff, but they may not know what they are looking for, the scope. And then they become more of us asking again, like in the next 6 years. But the words, everything is there. So Executive Order 91 is the framework that this current administration should have turned over for the incoming administration that would now know. I think George Weah gave it a name, Executive Order. I don't know the number for it, but he gave an executive order. But Ellen had given you everything so that it could be passed into a law. Basically, what Liberia was doing, Ellen was doing, was to follow what the United States did in 1964. As America passed a law called the Transitional Act of 1964. So Ellen was basically giving George Weah a carte blanche. Work on something I'm going to give you. Since we have never had this kind of, we have had this kind of transfer of power, have something to work with. But I wonder whether they ever touched it. Thank you.
Mrs. Letty Brooks Roberts.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, now tell us about the transition from George Weah to President Boycott. I will be shocked if President Boycott attempts to have a very lavish inauguration. We know he has said, time immemorial, that he has lived in that one house for over 40 plus years, and I won't be surprised if he keeps that house and just transition to the executive mansion. But I would be shocked if I see him building mansion like what George Weah did just a month and a half into his leadership, where he started breaking down his old home and begin to erect mansions at the expense of our country.
Well, from the history or the observation and from the campaigning, we've heard a lot of people say that the president-elect has not these many homes. He doesn't have anything in FOIA. He doesn't have this. He doesn't have that. So that strikes me as a person who's frugal. And in our Liberian mindset, when you're frugal, meaning you don't spend lavishly, they call you mean. So from his own lifestyle, his um, for lack of a better word, not mean, but not lavish. He's just, he's humble as, has been described. So I would think that the same way he is, you know, um, mindful of what he spends on himself, he will be that mindful in what is spent on in the country. So with that, and with all of the you know economic issues in the country, we'll hope that he will not be as lavish, you know, and using extravagant um, musicians or what have you, bringing out, like the last independence where they brought all these motorcycles from Ghana, use the bare minimum, just to make our people happy because everyone wants to see him do an inauguration, but with the mindset of you know do Liberia. He said, all things Liberia, love Liberia, build Liberia. So let's hope that he will see these in his inauguration in his first 100 days. Using everything Liberia, making sure the fabric and all things that they buy will be from Liberia-based proprietors, and use Liberian musicians that are there or maybe nearby rather than send for somebody from a million miles away, paying for people from other countries. Besides the dignitaries that will be coming, we hope that again he will use everything Liberia, clean up the city. And that's what I was going to say. How do you go to a climate conference when right in front of you, Monrovia is filthy? Climate is part of cleanliness. All of the particles that are going in the ocean, all of those things. So let's hope that this president-elect will be mindful of all those things. Use the money that he will spend to clean up with the people, employ the young people, give them money. They can't just do it for free. If you were paying someone, you would give them something. So I would encourage and or be hopeful that he will use our people to minimize costs on the inauguration.
Reverend George,
Yes.
you just listened to Letty Brooks Roberts. Earlier, you listened to Dr. Artemus Gate about Executive Order 91 coming from Ellen. Ellen transferred smooth power to George Weah in 2017. Now that we have something similar coming to happen in the next month and a half, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are first, I wanted to comment on something about this climate change. If I can take a second to just brush on that. It is said we're living in a world that is driven by quote unquote superpower. Africa is being dragged into this climate nonsense that is still pretty much debatable by scientists from both eyes of the world. It's an unsettled debate. Look at the green vegetation of Liberia. You talk about climate change. You talk about people who are championing climate change, even here in the U.S., who are riding private jets, polluting the air. You talk about India, China, these people who are non-regulated, and they're going to be dragging Africa. So it's a debate by itself, because I know the science on both sides is still unsettled. It's not a What is a threat to this world is human suffering, hunger that is killing people, is being overlooked. But that's beside the point. Now, executive order or no executive order, for me, I'm very consistent. Like Mrs. Robert just echoed, let's be considerate of the country. And for me, it's also an advice that will help the incoming president to succeed, to be very meticulous on spending. You look at the coffers, look at what already is there, what is not there. So I don't think Ambassador Barker should listen to most of the things that it used to be done this way. No, can you do something different? Can you now request the executive order and see what is in it? Can they take that executive order and give it to the transitional team to review it? Because I maintain from day one, once the president is inaugurated, we're not in transition anymore. The clock start taking for your first 100 days. So right now they should use the transitional period to review all these things, executive order, what Ellen gave, what Georgia didn't do, so they can have the opportunity to see what they can do. Other than that, again, it's almost like we are buying a pig in the bag now. The Liberian people needs to know what is budget going to be. I doubt it. If we don't know now, we'll come back 6 years and say, oh, last transition they spent 900,000, 1 million. Well, how did it happen? So now is the time they need to come clean. That's my position. They need to come clean to the Liberian people. Yeah.
Reverend Addy?
Well, so let's be very clear. We're doing a lot of speculation, and that is fine. I can certainly appreciate the hopefulness that this incoming government, will be very meticulous and not be very lavish about their expenditure. While if that is true, I think it's only fair to give them a chance. They've just formed this transition um, between the two leaders. So we are hoping that they will definitely be very cautious when you listen to the incoming president. He's been very clear. He's looking forward to putting a leadership of credibility in place that will not mismanage the Liberian people's money. So, all of these fears in some way, shape, or form can be legitimate. We also want to be very careful that in our speculation, we don't legitimize our fears as realities. When in fact, none such things happening. Many of the individuals that have been placed on the transition team, these are people who aren't getting paid. Our party spoke on the issue that they are all volunteers. The number of experts who aren't getting paid by government but helping to ensure that Liberia is transition, in a way that will at least be inexpensive. So we have not seen the budget, and therefore, one cannot conclude that there will be a lavish spending of money, but the caution is necessary. So I just want us to be quite careful as we speculate and not allow speculations to become a reality of fact. So the truth remains. The Honorable Joseph Imampoiga has been very clear, and you can all rest assured that he's not looking to build houses that he didn't build in his years of service to government when he had access to state resources. So he's a very conservative leader, and that is why the Liberian people have given him a mandate to ensure that Liberia is properly rescued for the greater good of all. And climate change on that particular issue, make no mistake, almost 99% of the scientists do agree that the temperature of our globe is changing for the worst. And our human effort to preserve it and conserve it has everything to do with how we manage it. So, yes, it's been debatable, but there are some practical facts. You go to Liberia today, Liberia is hotter than before. So one cannot make that error by saying that, oh, the science is not clear as to whether or not there is global warming. I certainly understand politically people have made that a political football to kind of, have a debate in a way that is ignoring the facts about the climate change we find ourselves experiencing in the world today. The ocean level is rising, the iceberg is kind of decreasing. So the facts are overwhelming concerning the reality of our globes and this transition. Winter time isn't happening as winter time. There are some winters that are pretty much like as if this is summer. So all of these signs are a genuine reflection of the facts that indeed The world is poised at a 1.5 Celsius, and hence leaders are meeting globally to see how best the climate can be conserved around our livestock, our clean energy. As a matter of fact, one of the goals is to reduce emissions.
Thank you, Reverend Adit. Emmanuel Jackson, Thomas Awaji, Jordan Jalad, welcome to the
Greenhouse
show.
gases.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Adit. Dr. Gay, since we, in fact, model our Constitution after the U.S. Constitution, last week we saw in the tune of 20 EPS officers headed by the Deputy Director to went to give some protection to the president-elect. Listen, we saw the both sides introduced the transition teams. This should not be secret. Okay, we should be in the know by this time as to what they are, why are they discussing, why are they working with. Time is not on our side. It's time to leave. We should be known. As a matter of fact, President Boycott now should be briefed with some sensitive information as it relates to security. He should be in the know as to how much is left in the cupboards. We shouldn't wait to inauguration. We should be informed. These are the kind of things that's supposed to be out there. You call for transparency. We shouldn't be in the dark. Come on now.
You just hit it. Actually, you just said it, and that is why, as I lay out the historical facts, when we write our history, Ellen laid out for Mr. Weir to move that executive order 91 to a law, so that we cannot have what we have, because we don't know those involved, even with the security details. Because if I am right, some of the individuals involved have history that we don't want to even discuss here. And these are people who never came through the ranks and file of being these kind of people in an executive detail. We know their names. They live here in America. We know what happened to them. They were deported from this country. So if, again, this outgoing administration had done what it should have done, there should be no secret. In fact, I mean, the six pillars laid out through 91 could have easily helped us to know what we know. In fact, I don't want to push this here. Knowing what we know, that we are now going to inherit one of the worst economic indicator of our country, because as the last time I used the word tourism, the fake Ponzi scheme laid up by Samuel Twell, there's nothing there for us. If I was Mr. Barker, if I had someone on that team, and I'm being very honest here, knowing what I know, I would have gone send that person who understands the financial side or person like. I don't think we should encourage Mr. Weir to lead this team at this time, knowing full well that we know that we have no money, and it ties into the very issue of climate change. We know now that a plane taking over 40 people, what it means. The person is represent us. And I'm sure Mr. Weir will say yes. And in fact, this meeting is actually a Zoom meeting also. So you have many ways to have it. Can you imagine President Weir, outgoing president, with his friends or his outgoing cabinet, can go to Patawi Waterfall and have a large screen and show the beauty of our waters, and then have that zoom in and make a statement? That will still be powerful. It won't cost a plane ride. But again, it will take people within the workers and a transitional team to start making this case. Say, let's talk to the president, outgoing president. We don't think we need to be doing this time, knowing our budget. So yes, this time it requires a radical statement. This is not about, we're just going to cruise it out because we are transitioning. The transition has happened. It should have happened earlier with what should have been placed in Executive 91. If only Mr. McGill and those who were appointed to lead that and push our lawmaker, including the very today debated name we're hearing out, Funati Kofa, because he was deputy, and so were all the seditions. They should have pushed this to the law. So we shouldn't be guessing. We should know exactly how much this transitional fund should have been to this day. And just as Reverend George said, it should be something so simple and more of a people-raised fund. It happened under Obama. half of 40% of Obama's fees for his inauguration or for the transition team were actually raised by ordinary people. I just want to lay that out here to us.
Mr. Selecty Brooks Roberts, I think this is about time that we get to know what's
Very
happening. We shouldn't be in the dark, you know. These guys claim to be the professionals. They know what they're doing. They've governed before, so they should be able to tell us what they have in store for us.
Yeah. No, I agree. And on last week they already have, they started the process. So by now, I think the first thing they should have looked at are the books, because that's the most important of all the things before you start planning anything, whether it be for the new government, or what is, what is true, the trip was planned, but if it depends how much it's it's costing and what we need for our inauguration.
Hello, Mrs. Roberts. I think she's freezing there from her end. Uh, Reverend George, as we wait for Mrs. Roberts to come, Mrs. Roberts, are you there?
And everything should have been checked before these people took.
Mrs. Roberts? Okay, Reverend George, take it away. Reverend George?
Yes, I'm here.
Mrs. Roberts, are you back now? You might have to make some adjustment with your device, Mrs. Roberts. What's going on? We can't hear you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Reverend George.
Yeah, when she comes, I can yield to her. You see, we are all saying the same thing here, but my concern is the way we throw out information. My brother, Reverend Dad, there's no 99% science settled on climate change. That's false. Liberia does not emit 1.00 to the climate change. The people who are emitting the climate change are the ones who are riding private jet here in America. All the celebrities, all the government officials, Al Gore, and all the liberals, they ride private jets. You know how much emission comes from one private jet? That's the double standard and hypocrisy. They're dragging Africa into this. What we're saying here is that this is another shenanigan. Industrial revolution came. They went to Africa, they extracted, they came, built all these heavy factories that are emitting. Think about India, think about China. Now, for Africa to develop, they want to bring climate change so that there will be no way for everything, and then they will come back, import their solar, their clean energy idea. It's all labor fraud, and the politics on both sides. All the liberal tycoons in this country ride private jets. If they care about climate change, like my brother was saying, private jet from Liberia, you say care about climate change, the city is dirty. Look, let's be serious here. There are things that are unique to Africa. There are things that are not applicable to Africa. The whole world in the one world order is just pushing everybody, dragging everybody in there. Meanwhile, our people are suffering on the ground. And we're talking about taking delegates to UAE, or we should be talking about saving money. You're talking about some climate change thing. Brothers, because we leave this country, every year I leave this country, I travel out, I see human suffering. It is appalling. It is degrading. It is inhumane what is happening to the world. And all we do is bring all these ideas, big ideas. What's the 99%? I need to see the records of 99% scientists who agree that climate change, look, it's going to get hotter. Okay, so what we are discussing here is it the right time for Liberia that we're talking about? The country is drowning economically. Is it the right time to follow some climate change crusade by, rich, wealthy worlds who are polluting the climate with all their equipment, with all their jet planes and their fighter jets and all of that? We're going to follow them and drown our country. We are talking about being circumspect. What are they spending? on this inauguration? What would it take? The Liberian people need to know. And we're advising the incoming administration, from nation building standpoint, look, we all gonna be critical, we're all gonna bring advice. But for me, if I were on the team, we would set a record. And if Mr. Cummings had won the election today, I would champion the same thing. Set a record, deviate from the norm, make something on a small scale, save the country some money, and go after the waste instead of having some elaborate something that will follow suit. Oh, the other brother was here 100 years ago. We used to do it. So what? People suffering about 100 years ago. So let's just continue to advise. Hopefully, they will listen and say, brother, you can do something different and make a record.
Thank you, Reverend George.
Yeah, sorry that the ambassador Bwaka show a good example by scaling down the inauguration for the sake of the country. For me, that's what I'm advocating. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll bring in Reverend Adi. After Reverend Adi, then we'll talk about the future of some of the outgoing officials who are just barely in their late 20s and early 30s. Some are on their knees now begging for forgiveness to people who are coming to power, as if without government jobs they won't survive. Reverend Adi, take it away.
So, quite frankly, I don't know when Reverend George went to Liberia, but you will see that Liberia is hotter than before. So I'm not attempting to politicize this fact. It is clear that when you look at how climate change affects the globe, I guess when Reverend George thinks about climate change, he said, "Oh, Liberia is a green area. We are a green country, so therefore it doesn't impact us." But the truth is, Reverend George, when you look at other nations and you look at the reports from NASA and how the world is becoming very hot, they have been projected that it's going to get so bad to the point of 1.5 degrees Celsius. This is NASA reporting. So what they're saying is, oh, if heat waves are destroying crops around the world, Liberia becomes affected by that reality. So because we live in a global village, when something affects one country in one area, it affects your rice that we import going to Liberia because your soil becomes devastated and there's no way to plant food and so forth and so on. So this is a reality, but I certainly don't want to make it a political football because the facts are very clear. We see how temperatures are rising. Science have reported that. These are in fact, the United Nations has reported on that, not just the U.S. government. So this is an open information that one can research. With respect to the lavish spending, I certainly agree with all of you. Government ought to be very careful in the midst of not knowing what they have in the coffers and how they plan, organize, and transition in a way that is reflective of the very management that we have reflected in the 6 pillars, the macro management and infrastructure development, pillar 1 of the Honorable Joseph Imambueka's vision. So let's be very clear. I believe under his leadership, this transition team will certainly reflect the will of the people. I know the expectations are very high, and we're not asking you to reduce your expectations. In fact, transparency ought to be reflected. All we're asking is, as they actually situate themselves to facilitate this process, many of you will come saying, well, thank God that they did exactly what we've asked them to do. And all of your criticism are quite frankly constructive, or your warnings. However, we just want to be careful that those warnings do not become a political football to degrade or denigrate this transition team, when in fact, many of the individuals on there are volunteers. That much I know from the Unity Partners camp. Thank you.
Dr. Gay, a wise man once said, prepare yourself in the absence of opportunity so that when the opportunity comes, you will already be prepared. Now, some people who have already served in the George Weah's administration will soon be out of job, and they don't have to only rely on government jobs to survive. That they can make a huge difference in the private sector. But we saw on video that folks now are begging, they're on their knees begging for opportunity. They are crying out to say they are sorry. Sorry for what? And as you can see in this video, I don't know if you see on the screen, uh, Dr. Gay, do you see the video on the screen where we have an assistant minister begging Prince Johnson?
Yes, I did see it today, and yeah, and yes, yes, and here what it reminds me of. You remember I said earlier here that Ellen-led Unity Party was basically authoritative on a unity on a George Weah. I mean
Mm-hmm.
that from checking all the records, because what Ellen did was faction of the Unity Party that went against former Vice President Joseph Boakai, now incoming president, was the likes of Eugene Nangwe, Mary Bro, uh, her Vanny Salif. I can name them here. 8 of the top George Weah top ministers were all Ellen ministers. So they never learned what it meant that within the private sector you can create job. So the like of I think what's his name again?
Yellow.
Yale. These were young men who are work, but because we in a society that depend on government job, so they couldn't transition. And I'm gonna list this. It's the same thing that happened to the port authority. We have they'll throw it. They work in government, they got out, and they depended on so they couldn't create the avenue even within the port system, what it meant to do the opportunity to create jobs where you can contract, subcontract. That's how most cities are run. That's how most government run. They run through private organizations or private entities that work within the government structure. But here we had a system, it was not created. Everybody had to depend on government job. And it hurts us because in the end, you have Yelu coming back to beg for the same job that he once did, the same thing that happened to Eugene Nangwe. As I say, he doesn't, without government job, he is like a beggar. So if we create that kind of society, it makes the Reverend George and I, who want to do things for our young people out there, it tie our hands. You send things to the port authority, it gets stuck because you got to go beg the same people who have been stuck in government job forever. So the young men and women who should be we ought to help create job for, we can't do it because the port authority tied to him. What sense does it make, Ashford, for me to ship things to Liberia to free? I had to go to 5 different entities to pay fees when that could be a one-stop shop and get your container out just when we load it from here. So all of these lack of ingenuity, lack of the spirit of entrepreneurship have been killed because dependency on government job. And then in the end, you have to use government money to feed all of your people that you know depend on you. It has to stop. And we pray that those who have the ears of this current administration can push this to this new dawn that we hope will enact a spirit of the private sector in Liberia.
Thank you. Folks, if you're just joining us, this is Ashford Garley Live on British Radio Africa. And today's program has been brought to you by Sassy Net. Sassy Net is your neighborhood internet service provider. They have a small business package starting at $65 unlimited speed, residential package starting at $35 unlimited speed as well. Then they also have the double play package, the IPTV and internet for both homes and businesses starting at $75 a month, unlimited IP television channels, including 100 additional sports channels, Premier League, games, etc., Netflix, Amazon, movies, series, and more. They provide public Wi-Fi for just $100 no data limit, just browse all day, and Wi-Fi entertainment locations, public buildings in and around Monrovia. They can be reached on Crown Hill, Broad Street, and the telephone number is 077-881-881, or you can also contact them on the internet at sales@sassynet.net. And I want to say a big thanks to our friend and brother, Lord Blaze, for that information. So if you are looking for internet and TV services in Liberia, make sure you contact Sassynet up on Crown Hill, Broad Street. Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts, if you are there, please take it away. There's a new sheriff in town now, the Honorable Josiah Yuma Boyka. And I know President Boyka said that if you are competent and you know your job, you will have a place in his administration, and he would not pick and choose. Are you there, Mrs. Roberts?
Yes, I'm here by voice.
Okay, yeah, go
My
ahead. We're
internet
listening.
is tripping.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, yeah, that's a great start. Again, it's not about who you know, but what you know, and that should always be the um the game of any administration. You know, hire competent people. Of course, there will never be lack of some of who you know, but the most important positions should be with competent, knowledgeable people. This way, you know the person that knows that task. They'll help and drip down to the rest of the staff. When someone knows their craft, it just there's nothing you can do about it. When they walk in the room, everyone wants to absorb some of their knowledge. So it helps the country, it helps the department, it helps the you know the ministry in Liberia term. So yes, I think that's a great start. We're asking um Pastor Adi, what we're saying here is all these talks are advices. You can take what you want, what whoever is responsible in this transition is listening to different people. I mean, we may be considered not much, but these are just advices. We're not trying to criticize the government because they haven't begun, but we're saying be considerate of these things. Be considerate of, who you hire. Be considerate of the size of the government. Let's say quality and not quantity. So when you have quality of people, 5 persons can do the job of 10 if they are, if they're well knowledgeable. And then you train other people in other departments. So I would applaud that if that they consider all these things that we are saying. Again, climate change, why it is a global pandemic, but we're saying character begins at home. So Liberia, in this time of in the predicament she finds herself, her president should be considerate sending a small size. That's part of the climate change because you're reducing. Anytime you reduce numbers, there's less people to absorb the airspace. There's less planes to fly. So as one of the colleagues said, using a space in your place that demonstrates how your environment looks, from a pictorial point of view, shows that okay, you're considerate of the climate. Right now, I'm in transition.
20 seconds.
I have a new president coming in. I want to stay on ground to make sure he has a smooth transition. That's considerate of change and climate and everything else. So that's what we're trying to say, not to badmouth anybody, but these are things we're considering. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Before we bring in Reverend George, we listened to Honorable Boycott when he said his administration would be a government of inclusion. And the wise man once said, don't listen to what they say, but just watch what they do. And we have seen inclusion so far. The likes of Yakpaklo Ure from the Gonklo administration, the Sira Besto Yanti from the independent camp. And one of the things that touched me was the inclusion of Noah Zau Gibson, this young man who has worked tirelessly for 6 years trying to pitch for Omen Yuma Boyka. He's included. And speaking of Zau Gibson, I think we're having on the line right now a young man, a young Liberian who is visually impaired, but he's included on the transition team. Zau, how are you?
Well, I'm okay. Let me first of all use this opportunity to apologize for my voice. lost my voice since the celebration, the announcement of Ambassador Parker being declared as winner for the election. So I lost my voice, but however, I think we can make it. Let's get it going. Thank you.
Now, what does it make you feel that you were named to be a part of the transition team for President Boycott? You there to represent the disabled organization, and Boycott saw your strength. He saw what you've done and what you can do. Based on that, you are also one of those people to steer the transition team as he gets into office.
First of all, is one of the biggest, in fact, it is the biggest achievement for me ever in my political sojourn.
Wow.
And I want to use this opinion, I want to use the opportunity publicly to appreciate His Excellency Ambassador Joseph Human Boakai, the President-elect of Liberia. You know, this man is somebody that I have known for the past 8 consecutive years. Since 2015, I got connected to Ambassador Boakai. And besides getting connected to him since 2015, all the years that I worked with Ambassador Boakai, he has shown to me that he means well administratively, that he's principle-minded. When he says that he will do this, he does it. He is a man that doesn't compromise the wrong or neither the right. He is someone who, that you can go to bed and sleep when he gives you a word. I didn't see this coming, to be honest with you. On Monday, when he was declared the winner of the November 14 runoff presidential election, I placed a call to him on Friday. Or before that, I placed a call to him on Friday, which was on the 17th of November, because he was declared winner on the 20th. And we spoke for like 1 minute, 30 seconds when I started to congratulate him. After President William conceded on Friday night, which was the 17th. So Saturday morning, I placed a call to Ambassador Boakai, congratulating him. And we spoke for 1 minute, 30 seconds. Then on Tuesday, I went to see him a day after he was declared the winner, which was on the 21st. And I went to meet him. I met with him, and we sat down. We spoke for, 10 minutes. And then he told me, the work has started. But he didn't tell me that I would have gotten included on this transition listing. When I got home, Friday of last week, Mo Ali placed a call to me. And he told me that, look, Noah, by the directive of His Excellency President-elect Ambassador Boakai, you have been included on the transition team, the national transition team.
And Noah, this day would not have come. It wouldn't have been possible. We know a few years ago when under the instruction of George Weah, Samuel Toy and then called you at the Boulevard Palace Hotel to try to entice you with money. They even offer you a vehicle. But you said, my people cannot be suffering and I can't take a peanuts from you people. And you refuse all of that because you stand for something. You're men of integrity. Other people would have said, you know what, let me take the car, let me take the money. But you said, no, my country, people are suffering and we need better things to happen in our country.
Yes. I never regretted my action. And if Liberia gets back in similar situation, which I don't pray for and I don't hope for, I will do what I did in other time. And let me say this to you. We must learn to stand for something. We must learn to have principles. You see, you cannot always sell your integrity for peanuts. You can't make yourself to look like you have no value, that you do not bring any value to society. You can't always make yourself to look like that. So if I had taken that offer, you're talking about something that happened 3 years ago. 3 years ago, that money would have been finished long since. The vehicle probably would have wear away by now, or by this time I couldn't even talk about sustaining or being able to maintain that vehicle. I would have even end up selling the vehicle. So at this time, what kind of respect I would have commanded, or the way I'm respected both in and out of Liberia, I would have lost my respect.
Thank you.
As compared to how others lose their respect. So I can tell you, always learn to endure when you're going through difficult times. Difficult times will pass. It may seem that is something that will not pass, but it will pass. Difficult times are like storm. The storm can come no matter how violent a storm might be. It might destroy, but it may not be to the point where it will carry you. Stand your ground. Be focused. Be steadfast. Be courageous. And that I was up to. So I can tell you I didn't regret that situation. But something you said that I want a little bit expand on, and my inclusion on this team did not only happen by Ambassador Parker because I am somebody with deformity or maybe somebody with disability. My inclusion is about he tried to show that he is a man of gratitude. That he doesn't forget people who strive and stand with him when he finds himself, or during the time of his difficulty, or during the time of the wilderness. That's why he demonstrated. So let's forget about whether I represent people with disability. Of course, that cannot also be ignored. It cannot be erased. It's a new fact that he tried to balance the team and demonstrate inclusivity, as he indicated. But let people also see it that, look, this man is a man that believes in gratification. So I think I see this, that he tried to show to the world that he's not going to those that stood by him. If you look at our team, they cut the cross. Look, you got people from the various collaborating parties who stood with him in the runoff, the Edward Aberton, like Lucille Camara, like you're talking about a lot of people, Dr. Emmanuel Jureja Kwawolo, who you were making mention of, who represented the Liberia People
I know
Party.
what want to say a big thank you for taking up time. I know it's way past 1 a.m. in Liberia, for even getting on the show tonight. We appreciate you. The last time I saw you were in 2020 when we went for the Darrell Dillon campaign. And God willing, I will see you soon again in Liberia. Thank you, my brother. Enjoy the rest of the night, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Before I hang up,
Let him conclusively conclude.
Yes. Let me use this opportunity to say a big thank you to God Almighty for making this to happen. What happened in Liberia was never the making of man. It was the making of the God. It was divine. I heard people say that we should appreciate President Weah for conceding. President Weah did not concede because he really, really wanted to concede. It was God that touched his heart because of the prayers from the churches. And We want to thank God for the international community who mounted a lot of pressure on him behind the scene to have done what he did. So it's not anything that I want people to commend him for. We must commend God. And lastly, to you, the diaspora Liberians, I can tell you, to you, the diaspora Liberians, you stood for your country. You show that you are a patriot. Many of you in that country, you were wicked or selfish. You had no reason contributing your resources because you have a decent life already. You would have said, look, to hell with Liberia. I don't care who dies. I don't care what happens to anybody. I will remain here with my family and live the best of life. But you didn't do that. You made sure that your resources up to now, some of you still contributing. So and also, I mean, I'm so grateful to all diaspora Liberians who did this. Thank you so much. You love your country. And I want to thank all of us who stood our ground from the beginning. And today we arrive at this point. So thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Noah. Thank you so much. Again, that was the voice of Noah Zawi Gibson, a staunch supporter of the Unity Party, and of course, President-elect Joseph Yuma Boykai, visually impaired. But I'm telling you, this young man is hardworking. He's brilliant. He has his own talk show in here, and he works at the Capitol Building, I think, in the office of Senator Darius DeLong. Want to go to Reverend George? I believe it's your turn. Come in, and then we'll begin taking closing statement. Reverend George. Please unmute the device.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you so much. And thank you to Noah and the rest of Liberians at home, abroad, and everywhere in the world. Look, we are consistent in articulating what we think will be the best for Liberia. I think this is the second time Reverend Dato is the second person who is giving this narrative about all these people that are appointed. They are working on a volunteer basis. We don't know that. I haven't seen any letter of appointment to any of them that say they are volunteers. So we are not here to contest that. But the fact remains is that we still need a budget. Liberian people need to know the budget because we don't want after the March commentary to say the money is squandered. And this is not speculation. We are only asking. We are suggesting. And to try to sweep that under the rug as speculation, no. We have every right as Liberian want to participate in nation building to say, look, this is my suggestion. I would think you guys can hardly consider scaling down, make a tough call to scale down, that you guys can consider doing something different, from the usual political norm, considering the plight of your fellow countrymen, and that, come clean. Like, for example, you continue to say, we don't know, 900,000 plus the last time, we don't know whether it's going to be 900,000 or more, but the Brentwood needs to know. And that's all we are saying. So this narrative about, they're all volunteer, we don't know that. I haven't seen any, they haven't displayed any letter to any of them. Georgia is bringing 20 people. Are they all going to be volunteer too? We understand Georgia is bringing 20. Ambassador Waka is bringing 20. That's 40 people. And I maintain what would be their individual role. And I was hoping that if we had an opportunity to pitch a question to Brother Noah, I would say, are you open to suggesting, since you are on the committee, are you open to suggesting that, the committee try to scale down? Would it be something that you would like to, because you are a member of the committee? So the day we address one of the committee members, we should be able to ask this question. Are you willing to contribute this idea that the committee, for the sake of Liberia, to scale down this inauguration so that it doesn't cost much? We can do it. We can make that suggestion and see what each and every one of them stand on that, because they're the one planning the ball, and at the end of the day, they're the one going to determine how much it costs Liberia.
Idatus, when you talk to the airwaves, both radio and television, whether it's in the diaspora or Liberia, and pitch in for the presidency of Joseph Yuma Boyka, we all know that you are comfortable here in the United States. In fact, you do more for Liberia and Liberians while you sit here in these United States of America. So it's not like you're looking for a job, but you did that because of the likes of Noah Zau Gibson, and for the regular Joe Blow who is in a Liberian and is competent as well, that deserve to serve his or her country.
And Ashford, you're absolutely correct. Oftentimes there is this perspective that when you support a particular party or a candidate, that means you're looking to yourself being rewarded. But the truth of the matter is, when we thought about rescuing Liberia and Joseph Boyka's vision being the embodiment of this reality, we were not doing it because we anticipated a reward. The reward is, for me, that the greater good of the nation can be met, such as the likes of Noah, rather, who spoke today. And not many people know, but when you look at Pillar 3 of the Honorable Joseph Imam Boyka's vision for Liberia, he has a genuine commitment with children, for children with disability. And he lamented in that vision that 90,000 US dollars was allotted to their education in 2019, but has in fact been reduced. So he has a commitment to that, and having, our brother now part of this transition team as a preferment is certainly a reflection of his commitment to ensuring a government of inclusivity, whether or not you are, you may be disadvantaged in any way, shape, or form, but you can be a part of rescuing Liberia. So I'm very proud, and once again, congratulations to, Mr. Zau for his preferment to be a part of this transition team. I certainly do agree that, Liberians reserve the right to anticipate or ask questions concerning what the government is doing with their resources. So that certainly will be taken into advisement, and hope that they will listen and be very skilled in implementing this transition. But as we do not know what the budget is, we're asking for a scale down. Hopefully, it will be a number, if revealed, that will kind of sort of reflect the expectations of Liberian people. I know that the Honorable Joseph Imam Boyka is a very conservative person in terms of, management of government's resources. Those who have worked with him have been very clear. I spoke to one of my sisters who worked with him at LPRC, and she stated that during her time there, if you were an office boy and a director, go to see Joseph Boyka at that time, he would first see the janitor or the office boy first. In fact, there was a time, she stated, that government had come to request some money from LPRC, and he stood his grounds that he has to pay the employees first, and then they can have their government money. So just hearing that testimonial had me reflect, wow, I certainly put my trust, or rather my support, in someone who has a heart for the people and a vision for Liberia. So it is my hope that he will certainly fulfill those expectations. We certainly know that he is inheriting a government that we all criticize of rampant corruption and the abuse of resources and power. So we are hoping that it will not be a repeat of that reality. But, at the same time, I know there are those who, quite frankly, may not want to appreciate President George Weah, but, the fact that we are at a position where we are experiencing a transition from our democratic process, he deserves some appreciation. And so therefore, we'll continue to facilitate that process until we can have a smooth transition. I know there was a statement made by one of my panelists that, the Honorable Joseph Imam Boyka should tell George Weah, stop spending money. Well, quite frankly, the transition mandate suggested by Madam Sirleaf is not yet law. So President George Weah is still the president of Liberia. So, he still has the bullet pulpit and the constitutional rights and duties to fulfill his assignment. So as we engage the end of this process, hopefully by January 22nd, when we shall have a new government, we hope that we'll put those things in place and implement that structure to ensure that it becomes law. Thank you.
Thank you. And folks, I'm afraid that's all the time we have to be with you tonight. Shortly, we'll be taking closing statements. We'd like to say hi to Emmanuel Garley, my little brother in Liberia. Addison, Marvin, David, my friend and brother, is in South Africa. Joe Williams, Thomas Awaji, Christopher Payne, Paul Smith. I also see Tony and Brooks, Celia Williams, Lund this year. Emmanuel Jackson, thanks for your contribution. Jimaman Cisco is also in the building tonight. We also like to say hi to the rest of the crew. If you are joining us for the first time, we want to say thank you. Tell the friend and the friend. Joman Jala is also here as always. And at this time, we want to go to Dr. Artemus Gay as he gives us uh, his closing statement. Alex Shaw, thanks as well. Dr. Gay.
Let me use this statement as we transition that no nation can ever be worthy of its existence that does not take its women along with the men. With our large population of women, as we transition, we must never forget the role of the women, those who are saw in the waters, walking to work on this administration succeeding. That image of that rainy day remains ever etched in my mind. As we move forward, I pray, I hope, as this country transition with the three branches of government, thank God, yes, the judiciary has a good number of women. We look forward to breaking the record. Liberia is a trend setter. Just as we told people we can have one-term president, we look forward to seeing a female one day in the Senate as the pro temp. We look forward to seeing a lot of good things come out of Liberia under the Joseph Boycott's led administration. Yet, you said something very powerful, Ashford. We all don't look for job in Liberia. We are doing so much for Liberia from this side. And we pray that Mr. Boycott and, as I said to some of the lawmakers, please respect the Constitution. Article 80, Section C and E says that Reverend George, Reverend Ade, Letty, we all can be right here and vote. That's the law. In fact, we're the first country in Africa to have that law. So if we talk about climate change again, we could save money and put it down for the likes of Noah Gibson for his projects instead of taking that expensive 2 flights to go to Liberia and come back from voting. When we respect the law, it means we are building an inclusive nation. God bless you all.
Okay. Closing statement, Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts. And just so you know, I'll be traveling tomorrow. So Idatus and Mrs. Brooks might host the show tomorrow. We'll do some technical things behind the scene to we'll then host the show tomorrow. And I'll be back on Thursday. Mrs. Roberts, your closing statement, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Garley. Thank you to my fellow panelists. And thank you for all of the knowledge as you travel. Dr. Gay, we pray for safe travels. I also want to say kudos to Noah Samuel Gibson. He's one of the persons I've listened to sometimes, most times when there was the late, well, not the late, the morning show on which one of our young, energetic Liberian brought the issues to us as well. And but from listening to Noah's um you know short conversation with us, I just want the Liberian people, especially our young men, to know that patience is a virtue. And when you wait patiently, you never know what you'll get. In our Liberian parlance, they say patient dog eats the fattest bone. Why I'm not saying he's gonna eat he's gonna eat, but I'm just saying that he has been recognized for his diligence and his tenacity and his faithfulness in advocating on the issues that matter to our people. It's not just for fame or fashion, jumping from ship to ship, but standing your ground and standing for the truth that you believe in. In closing, I want to thank all of you. Thanks to our viewers that are here. Please do support Bridge Radio Africa. Our Zelle number is posted. And feel free to come give us comments on we can improve the show. Thank you very much. You guys have a wonderful evening. And sorry for my change of position because my phone was acting up. Thank you. Good night.
Reverend George, your closing statement, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks to our panelists. We had a very healthy conversation. Thanks to Noah and all of the Liberians that fought on both aisles of the equation, whether you won or you didn't. We all did it for Mama Liberia. And so we thank God that we arrived at one stage now where, out of 19 candidates, there has to be 1 million, and nobody was entitled to win. Okay, we all fought hard. Nobody was entitled. So that Brimpo chose Ambassador Barker, and we are willing and prepared to rally around with all of the suggestions and critique that are going to move the country forward. And I also want to touch on and that's my individual perspective. I believe the time now that Africa is waking up and demanding industrialization is when they are pushing this sinister climate thing, because now they're done with coal, they're done with all of the extraction. We still have iron ore, we still have minerals that needs to be extracted, that need to be industrialized, that need to be manufactured. And they're pushing this narrative of climate change, and they want to bring fracking and windmill and solar, and to just deny Africa our own term of development, because the new breed of African leader we see now are demanding industrialization, they are demanding factories, they are demanding manufacturing of the resources. Okay, so instead of looking at China that is polluting almost 50% of the whole stuff, India, Russia, now Africa stands to lose if we buy into the shenanigans. Now I'm very serious about it. Look at Liberia. Look at the green forest vegetation in Liberia. How much emission you can get from Liberia? Zero. But we need them to come in now, and we have a partnership where our resources are manufactured, where factories are built, where industrialization begin to take place in Africa. It's not time to please pay attention to. For us who are in a religious circle, of course, the weather is the climate is getting hot. God says He's going to not destroy the world with water anymore, but with fire. Who knows? You're going to stop God? So leave that one. Let's develop Africa. Thanks to Ambassador Joseph Nyuma Boakai and our team, that those who are on that transition, if you can, please push the button so that we can have a lower scale, less pomp and pageantry, so that our people can be served better. That's all we are asking. Thank you for your time. May God bless Mama Liberia.
Thank you, Reverend George, and thanks to Reverend Idatus Hadi, and also thanks to Letty Brooks Rabbi for agreeing to host and co-host the show tomorrow night as we dive into who becomes the next speaker of the Republic of Liberia. There are a lot of names surfacing, and you guys, I'm pretty sure we'll have a great discussion tomorrow as travel and join you guys on Thursday. With that said, Reverend Adi, take it away with your closing statement.
Well, thank you. We are highly confident, and to my friend and brother, Dr. Gay, who stated that he's looking forward to having more women reflected. I want you to know that when you look at the Honorable Joseph Imamboyka's transition team, he has the Honorable Sarah Beslo Unity, Biming Horace Colley, and as well as Magdala Cooper. So it shall be a government of inclusion, but based on meritocracy in ways that we can facilitate and deliver the resources to all Liberians for the greater good. So it is clear that efforts are being made to ensure that this team is a reflection of the people's will, and that is why it's broad-based. We have Lucini Kamara from Alcor. We have Dr. Yakpawolo from Councillor Gonglo's party, the vice standard bearer. He's also on that team. Madam Sarah Beslo Unity, she was the vice standard bearer for her party. She's part of that team. So this team is a reflection of a broad spectrum of Liberians who are much committed to thinking Liberia, loving Liberia, and building Liberia for the greater good. And the truth remains when it comes to climate change, I do not want to buy into the conspiracy. Climate change is just not greenhouse gas emission. If you build factories, your factories want to be built in a way that conserves our environment. So let's be clear, if oil is discovered in Liberia today or tomorrow, we want to make sure that oil spills do not affect our climate. You look around you, you see the hurricanes You go to Liberia today, as a result of the war, we cut down some trees because we're eating what we call patanga. So all of those different issues are happening around the world. This is not a hoax, it's a reality. And I will certainly encourage my friend and brother, Reverend George, to look at report from the Oxford Academics, where it talks about the biomedical and facts about climate change, report of 2023. And there you will read extensively the truth about our world becoming hotter and hotter. You look at the Antarctica, which is often used as a basis to measure whether or not we are better than pre-industrial times. You would see that we are getting warmer, we're getting hotter than ever before. So this is not a conspiracy. Africa will rise on the basis of her resources and proper ingenuity to facilitate and preserve the environment from being devastated if we must advance in this technological world. Thank you.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have to be with you. God willing, the program comes back tomorrow night, and I will rejoin the show on Thursday. Until then, please allow me to borrow the wordings of the wise man. Tough times don't last, tough people do. The height of a man is never known until he rises. Basi plus second we are pelia. You wouldn't know mozo and when you mad double to dry. And you are the wapo dress it to Bayenge. He doesn't eat iron, but he's definitely stronger than a lion. Africa's media doobie-doo extraordinaire. And folks, until we join you tomorrow night, same time, same place, this has been yours truly, the Giant Garland. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Oka.
Calypso, right?